Hi guys, you are listening to Saigon Stories, a podcast where I have my closest friends come on and tell their side of the story as they live in Saigon. From a young age, I was exposed to the musical talents that are the Beatles and Barry Manilow. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Growing up in a house with a guitarist has made my ears for music a bit more highbrow. Considering how I love and live for live music, please welcome my favorite musician in town and good friend, Stewart Gatsi.
Hey.
Hi.
How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad.
Good. All right, so I guess we should just get right into it.
All right.
Why don't you tell some of the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Just to put it in a nutshell, I was born in Zimbabwe, and I've been traveling and living in different places for a good chunk of my life. I lived in the U.S. for a while, and Cyprus, South Africa as well. I've always, along the way, I've always had musical friends, whether it's been directly or indirectly, or people that always like to go to musical shows. I think that's played a big part in influencing my music. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So when did you come to Vietnam?
I came to Vietnam November 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
And have you been in Saigon since then? Was Saigon the first city that you came to?
Saigon is the first city I visited in Southeast Asia. And I think I made a good choice.
Yeah.
Great choice. Yeah.
Yeah? What makes you say that?
Well, I think there's so many things. Start with the food. But I think most importantly for me, the huge thing is the people.
Yeah.
And how welcoming everybody has been, and everybody seems to want to take care of me, which is tremendous. I think it's a great thing. For a big city like this, I think it's great. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you teach English here?
Yeah.
I
do.
Very cool. Very cool. So the first bit of the podcast, I think, is going to be dedicated to you telling us what you find funny about living in Saigon. Because there is definitely a comedic flair, if you will, to the city.
Yeah. Well, okay. I find it funny that it's perfectly okay to drive the wrong way up a one-way in Saigon, and it fits in, and it's sort of like organized chaos. I think a friend of mine described it best. The traffic in Saigon is like, especially the motorbikes, like a stream of red blood cells.
Okay.
It's organized chaos, but somehow it works and everything flows.
And everyone kind of just gets to their place.
Yeah, or a stream of fish, if you will. So,
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That is true, because the traffic is crazy here.
Yeah. But in a way, I take humor from it. It's a double-edged sword. I'll tell you that. Sometimes you can get frustrated. With it, but at the same time, there's a comical side to it, and seeing that it works in the way that it does it, I think it's great. It's beautiful.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah.
What else?
Something funny we're talking about, right? There is, I think, a certain playful nature that Vietnamese people have that I've never seen anywhere else in the world, that I think is very endearing, and it's kind of almost reconnects me with my childhood in a way.
Okay.
And it gets you to almost forget about your problems and in the moment just be yourself. So there's a certain element of Vietnamese culture that I find that just embraces the playfulness, which I think is great.
Oh yeah. Just kind of like going on with it and just, figuring it out the best way you can.
Yeah. Absolutely. So,
okay.
Yeah.
With that being said, anything else?
Something funny, I think. I wouldn't say necessarily funny, but something I appreciate is is the love of music. Some people may find this funny, but in Vietnam it's perfectly normal to find somebody walking around with a speaker and a cordless mic, singing songs, just walking down the road on their own. And I've never seen that anywhere in my life before, and I think that is it's amazing. It's
cool.
just somebody walking around expressing himself.
Or like,
if you like it, walk
or
away.
like
If you
you'll
don't.
be like on a motorbike and you'll hear someone's speaker playing. Like every once in a while, you're like, "Who's playing music?" And you're like, "It's that guy." And it's like he's enjoying his journey the best way he can. So that's fine. You know?
Yeah. I think. I think ultimately, I think Vietnam has been very warm and embracing in many ways that I didn't expect, and especially the musical side. When you look at how welcoming everybody is, if you can go to any cafe with a guitar or open mic and want to play, and people will allow you to play. You know, I've been in places where it's taken me years just to get one gig, but being in Vietnam, people are so welcoming. I've easily in half a year gotten more gigs than I ever imagined I could in my entire life. So I love how warm and embracing the people in the culture are. Not just, and I'm talking everybody that lives here seems to have that. The local Vietnamese population, the expats as well, and the visitors and tourists. Everybody seems to have this really welcoming and loving energy. Which I
definitely.
Really appreciate.
Oh yeah, totally appreciate that. It's great.
Yeah.
What else do you find funny? Is that all?
I think probably that would probably round it up. I think I probably have more positive things to say.
Good.
I think the thing is, it's very easy to also get bogged down in the small negative aspects of life in anywhere, actually. Because if you look for bad things in any place, you'll find them. So I think that if you really look at the place for what it is, I have nothing but positive things to say.
Yeah, and it's a place where like laughing is better than crying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's sunny every day.
I know, right? And that's the great thing. Consistency, especially. And I think that contributes to the nature of the people as well. It doesn't get very cold here. So consistent temperature, I mean, more or less throughout the year. So
it's great.
I think that definitely affects how people are as well. So
for sure.
Yeah.
Good. So okay, speaking about the positives and things you find funny about Saigon and been here for so long, let's talk about the things that frustrate you. What genuinely just makes you feel like a little piranha in a sea of fish here?
Well, perhaps I would say the lack of exposure. I think being black anywhere in Asia is a little bit challenging, and I certainly embrace that.
What? Obviously.
Yeah.
Since you have lived here for 2 years, is it?
No. I've only been here a year and 4 months.
So a year and 4 months.
Yeah.
What do you think is genuinely frustrating about being black?
Here, I think it's probably the lack of exposure. You find because people aren't necessarily exposed here, and by exposed I mean exposed to different ethnicities. There are certain challenges, and people would behave in curious manners. For example, I was teaching at a public school, and one kid walked by me and he rubbed my arm. And he's like, "Whoa, man!" So that was a moment where I could have turned around and been angry or have walked out of that school or anything.
Do you think he rubbed his arm because?
Well, yeah, of course.
Like, you know.
Yeah, because he went like that. So,
Yeah.
but the way I took that,
Yeah.
I turned around and then I rubbed his skin. I was like, whoa, man. I did the same thing he did. And then everybody sort of laughed. And so I think for me, it's more to do with curiosity than actually racism that you face in places like this, because they have a lack of exposure.
Yeah.
I know that there are examples of people going through bad situations without question, here or anywhere. But I think the general consensus here, from my perspective, is that people are just curious and unexposed.
Right. It's funny you say that because I am obviously like a white girl from upstate New York, and my skin is really pale because my family is from Irish descent, and there'll be times when I'll be walking into a cosmetic shop to get like makeup or whatever it is that I need, and sometimes women will comment on my skin and be like, oh, very porcelain. And because I'm so pale, I'm like, yeah, like very porcelain skin. And typically a lot of the girls here are a little bit more, tanned, which is also beautiful. But for me, I never thought of my skin as porcelain until I came here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is definitely something to be aware of, because it's kind of funny. I'm like, that's true. My skin is very porcelain-like, Well,
I think what's important as well, like for the audience to know, is the appreciation of beauty here is seen as the image of being pale. So whereas in some places maybe being tanned is seen as beautiful, here it's seen as the paler you are, the more beautiful you are. But what I love about being here is shattering perceptions and barriers with every single thing that I do. For example, driving a motorbike. Not many black people that drive a motorbike in Vietnam.
For sure.
So, not that that's anything to write home about, but it's nice to know that I play a part in exposing people to maybe different aspects or different ways of doing things, and vice versa as well, because I can also in turn learn from being here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like when I'm on, because I don't drive here because I have like very limited skill set when it comes to automobiles.
Yeah.
So if I'm on the back of a motorbike and I look around, I'll see like the Vietnamese looking at me, and like I'll always like smile at them, even if they're just staring, because like I know it's like a funny thing to see.
Yeah. I think as well, like if you imagine maybe perhaps if you lived in a country that perhaps hadn't had as much exposure as maybe, let's say, the U.S. I mean, in New York, there are people from everywhere.
Yeah, from every, like slice of the pie.
Yeah. And I think that here, perhaps the population has been more protected from the rest of the world. So, in essence, I think it's only natural. Imagine being the first white person to step anywhere in any environment, or the first of a few of a certain group of people to go somewhere, whether it's religious or racial or sex. There's always going to be scrutiny. You're always going to be the center of attention. So at times, I sometimes feel like everything that I do represents my country and my race and my continent, which is, I think it shouldn't be that way, but ultimately, because sometimes it's the first experience for some people that they're dealing with a person from Zimbabwe, as an example, or from New York, that they would base their perception of people from that country based on the experience they had with you. So you've always sort of got to be mindful of that apart from being yourself as well.
Yeah.
So there's a balance that needs to be reached.
Of course.
Yeah.
Definitely has to be reached. Okay.
Yeah.
What else do you find frustrating?
I think the only other one thing I find frustrating, there was, I won't mention the name of the establishment. I was at a certain establishment.
Boy Vian? Was it on Boy Vian Street?
No.
Shocking.
This was somewhere in District 1.
Okay.
Pretty decent place. They serve craft beer. And I stood...
Give me a wink
and tried
if it's true. Just kidding.
I stood in front of the cashier or slash bartender, and I wanted to order a drink, so I stood there patiently.
Yeah.
And somebody came and to my left, they ordered. Somebody came to my right, they ordered. To my left again, they ordered. To my right again, they ordered. And somebody was about to order from my right, and I
So you
said,
were patiently waiting.
right. And then I said, I'm sorry, but I've been waiting longer than any of these people have been here. I would like to order a blah, 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 and she will have a blah, blah, blah after me. And then I got my drink. So I think maybe the frustration is standing in line and expecting fairness.
For sure.
But then again, I think different cultures, different ways of doing things. Because the perception of standing in line in Singapore and New York and Hong Kong and Harare and in Cape Town is different in Ho Chi Minh City.
Yeah, if you're standing in line, you're served. But also sometimes, since I'm like really short, I'm not like seen. So like I have to like stand up on my tippy toes and be like hi
and wave.
You know. But for you, like you're tall and like you were standing in line, but still you weren't being served, which is obviously frustrating because you were waiting.
Right.
Was the bartender, were they Vietnamese?
Well, I mean, it's irrelevant.
Okay.
But I think it's just for me an issue of fairness.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you're from. If you're standing in line and you're next, then
you're next.
You should be next. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I think that's probably the only frustrating thing. Overall, though, I think that there are more positive things I have to say about Vietnam than anything else.
Like what?
The people, how welcoming they are, how open they are to complete strangers and wanting to learn. And the food is just amazing. If you want to find healthy stuff, you'll find it. You want to find unhealthy stuff, you'll also find it. But the food is great. And just learning about the history and culture of the different parts of Vietnam as well, I think is very interesting, because people have a different perception, I think, of Vietnam, and I think I did too. Before coming here, I believed what many people do, that this is still very much a war-ravaged place. Somebody even asked me, like, are you sure it's safe? Isn't there a war?
Oh, yeah. People ask me that too. I'm like, yeah, like, I think so.
Yeah.
I don't really know. Figure it out. Like, I'll get back to you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I think my own stereotypes and misconceptions have been shattered. And
so now we're on to the next topic and final topic for the episode. What do you find endearing about Saigon?
Wow. I think number one, everybody's always trying to take care of me. Just, for example, in and around my neighborhood, random old ladies who live next to me will try to make sure I'm all right and run after the gate and try to close it when I'm, reversing my motorbike. And there's a very family-oriented, welcoming atmosphere, which I really appreciate. Yeah.
Okay, besides the welcoming atmosphere, what else do you find endearing?
I also find it endearing that the music scene is very open here. I think if you are a musician that is looking to get exposure, I think Vietnam is a great place because there are a lot of places that have open mics and people that are actually willing to give you a chance here, which perhaps is not as easy to access that chance, in other places. So that I definitely find that endearing about it. I mean, I had places where I came and showed up here and people just said, yeah, sure, you can play, go ahead. I mean, they'd never heard me play, but all I did was show up with a guitar and they're like, yeah, sure, give it a try. And yeah,
that is definitely endearing and refreshing.
Yeah.
Anything else before we get on to what's next for you?
I also find it endearing that the lady that I order my breakfast sandwich from knows what I want before I get there. So I guess to our audience members, they don't know, like the famous thing here in Vietnam is called a banh mi, which it's like a breakfast sandwich, so to speak. So you can throw in some egg and meat in there and vegetables and stuff. And every time where I go to work, I stop by, and as soon as I get off my bike, the lady that owns the food stall starts making it, and it's kind of nice. I like that personal touch, I guess. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. So, with that being said, what do you think is next for you and creatively, professionally, like here in Vietnam?
So at the moment, I'm actually working, just finishing up recording a new single, and that's going to go on iTunes, which I'm very excited about. And
is this your first single on iTunes?
No, I've actually had a couple of singles on iTunes. The first single I had on iTunes was called "The Walls," which I released when I was in Zimbabwe at the time, actually. And then, so this is my first, I think, fully professional release. I've worked with a very well-seasoned producer from England, and he's really amazing. He's a musician himself. He's toured in Europe, and he goes by the name of Benjamin James, and he's really brought out some really amazing things that I didn't think I was capable of.
Right.
So I am looking to release a single called "Well on My Way," and that's going to be happening pretty soon, in the next couple of months. Yeah.
We'll have to stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you want to add or anything else you want to say?
Yeah, well, actually, the next big thing, actually, I'm planning and hosting probably the biggest event of my entire life.
Okay.
It's called the Soul Carnival Music and Arts Festival, and essentially, I was inspired by there's a music and arts festival in Zimbabwe called Harare International Festival of the Arts, and they have you go into this massive park. It's called Harare Gardens, and you have music, poetry, circus, art displays, photo displays, theater, basically, essentially as much art as you can possibly contain in one space. And that's something that I always remember going to as a child. And so essentially I wanted to create my own version of that. And so I've incorporated my love of acoustic music and the arts. And so I've decided to mash that up together, and we're going to have a 2-day festival on May 27th and 28th at Saigon. And on the 26th of May, which is also my birthday, we're going to
very cool.
We're going to have a masquerade ball, which includes an acoustic performance and some arts display as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. And the great thing about this as well is that this is not just hey, we're doing a festival, but the festival actually involves the local community, which is something that's, I think, very important for me, because as expats, it's easy to live in a bubble. But it's also good to know that there are great musicians and painters and exhibitors and artists that are local and originally from Vietnam as well. So the whole point of the festival is to incorporate everybody and to include everybody from everywhere and from Vietnam as well, which is the key. So
that's super exciting.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And I have to say as well, congratulations on on launching the blog.
Thank you so much.
Officially.
The podcast, but
the
that's
podcast.
fine.
My bad.
It's
podcast.
fine. Yeah, thank you so much. Well, I guess that pretty much wraps it up for us. So I want to say thank you to everyone who's watching and listening, and I will see you later. Bye.